hearing disabilities, to break barriers to opportunity through life-changing hearing equipment and support. They're keen to work with the local hospital trust and ICB to take their services to more people. Will the Minister therefore back them in their efforts to engage with the trust and ICB to help bring their charitable services to more people with hearing disabilities in Eastbourne and beyond?
Mr Speaker, that sounds like a very sensible suggestion, sensible and constructive suggestion from the Honourable Gentleman. I'll make sure that the views of his constituents are shared with colleagues in the Department for Health and Social Care so that they can provide further advice on how might that best be taken forward.
Bob Black.
Question number 4, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
This government is taking unprecedented action to improve the response to these heinous crimes, to get more perpetrators behind bars and to get justice for victims and survivors. We are increasing investment to the task force and every police force has been asked to review cases closed where no further action was taken. Arrests are increasing. We are expanding victims' rights to review. Crucially, we are introducing the new long overdue mandatory reporting duties and the new statutory aggravating factor for grooming offences.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. In previous parliaments, the Housing, Communities and Local Government Select Committee did inquiries into both Rochdale and Rotherham, amongst other towns, where sex grooming has taken place. We now know that that's a nationwide problem. We heard from Dame Louise Casey, that there was a problem with Pakistani men and their culture, and also the victims being predominantly white girls who were in council care. The problem now is that this seems to be, as I say, a nationwide problem, and that we have evidence not only that council staff, councillors, social workers and possibly the police have been complicit or at least turned a blind eye to it. Given these circumstances, local inquiries are not going to be good enough. So will she now call for a national inquiry, judge-led, with witnesses being required to give evidence under oath, so those people that turned a blind eye can actually be brought to justice?
Just to answer the final point, national statutory inquiries don't actually send anyone to prison, just to be clear on that. And he mentions Dame Louise Casey, who is absolutely rightly in her work in Rotherham, and others work in Rochdale. And the reason that we know about some of the terrible behaviours is because of those brilliant local inquiries undertaken in those towns. And Louise Casey is currently doing a national audit that will report shortly.
Mims Davis, Shadow Secretary.
Yeah. Despite what the Prime Minister has said, speaking out for rape gang victims is not jumping on a far-right bandwagon. Yet yesterday it's reported that Number 10's interim spokesperson said it's obviously disappointing to see people weaponising rape gangs for political point scoring. Mr Speaker, I ask, how does this square with the harrowing personal testimony from Jade, Chantal, Scarlett, Erin and Steph in Anna Hall's Channel 4 documentary aired last week, where concerning questions continue about councils, police, schools, social workers and children's homes? In these reported up to 50 communities where vulnerable girls who are underage, exploited children were unbelievably labelled as promiscuous or child prostitutes.
The Honourable Lady points out the terrible things that have gone on historically and that continue to be a concern across our country, which is exactly why the government is investing in the task force, which is working across the country with police forces to ensure that people can be arrested and girls can be kept safe. Arrests have gone up. Everybody thinks this issue is a terrible one. Absolutely everybody does. And I remind the Honourable Lady of a Prime Minister who she served as gladly served as a Women and Equalities Minister, who said looking into these historic cases was spaffing money up the wall.
Mims Davies.
You're in government now. A year. What an awful result.
As a child, Jade got a criminal record during her own abuse and exploitation, and now cannot attend her own children's school trips. Chantel rightly said, "We're not the problem, the men are the problem." Mr. Speaker, despite plenty of good women on the front bench, I have to ask, is this government simply more interested in protecting their own rather than staying true to their manifesto pledge?
Absolutely right.
Which says we will use every tool to target perpetrators. Yet Labour are turning their back, you can hear it, once again, with the leader of this House calling it dog whistle politics on national radio. So why won't this minister and her front bench commit to deliver a proper national statutory public inquiry and finally put victims first?
I will absolutely protect my own in this. And my own in this are the women in our country who for the last 14 years have had no effort made. And people say terrible things, and the Leader of the House was right to apologise. I wonder how many of those on the opposite bench asked the former Prime Minister to apologise for saying that the exact girls that he was talking about, that their lives, and looking into them in an inquiry that already happened that was statutory, was spaffing money up the walls. Where was the outrage?
Sonia Kumar.
Question number 5, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, a £250 billion boost could be added to the UK economy if women are given the same opportunity as men to start and scale their business. That's why it is a priority for this government to increase access to capital for women-led businesses, and that we continue to work, as the Chancellor has also outlined, on the Women's Business Council work, the Invest in Women's Task Force, and with supporting the FTSE Women Leaders programme. We have also backed the Invest in Women's Task Force, which launched an initial £255 million fund with a £50 million commitment from the British Business Bank to be invested via female investors into women-led businesses.
Mr. Speaker, for every £1 of equity funding, only 2p goes to fully female-funded businesses, a figure that has barely shifted in recent years, and that closing this gap could unlock up to £250 billion for the UK economy. Can the Minister outline what further steps the Department will take in collaboration with the Treasury, DBT, to address this persistent inequality and support female entrepreneurs for scaling their businesses?
Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend is right. For too long, innovative women-led start-ups have been held back due to a lack of finance, with the proportion of equity capital investment going to all female founder firms stuck at around 2% in the UK for the last decade. Alongside the Invest in Women Task Force, the Department for Business and Trade is leading on the Investing in Women Code, working with finance providers to increase access to finance, resources and networks for women-led businesses. I want to see us use the talents of all business leaders to support female entrepreneurs, which is right not just for women, but for the whole economy.
I thank the Minister for her answer. Minister, in my constituency of Strangford, there are many women who have started their own businesses. There has been a problem that's been getting access to the finance to actually make it happen. Venture capital will make that happen. To ensure that ladies and women have the same opportunities as men, just because they're a different sex doesn't mean they're any less able to do that job. Can the Minister ensure that the venture capital will be available in Northern Ireland for my ladies in Strangford, for my ladies and my women in Northern Ireland?
I thank the honourable gentleman for his question. The funding will be available to women-led businesses in his constituency, and it is absolutely right that we continue to support the work of the Women's Business Council and others to make sure that we are looking at all we can do to support women in businesses and to come forward to start their own enterprises.
Ollie Glover in Topicals.
Number one, Mr Speaker.
Sarah State.
Mr Speaker, this government is taking decisive action to deliver our plan to make work pay, putting more money back into people's pockets. The Office for Equality and Opportunity recently launched a public consultation on mandatory ethnicity and disability pay gap reporting and a call for evidence on other measures to improve security at work for everyone and to tackle unequal pay. We will work in partnership with business to deliver this government's plan for change.
Glover.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Many constituents have written to me to express their concern on the recent UK Supreme Court ruling relating to the legal definition of a woman. It has left the already vulnerable members of the trans community feeling uncertain about how they will be able to go about living their day-to-day lives. What steps is the Minister taking to work with her colleagues in other departments to provide further guidance and clarity on what this judgment means in practice?
Mr Speaker, you will know that I made a statement to this House setting out the government's position where we welcome the clarity of the Supreme Court ruling. I should also stress that, of course, everyone within our country deserves to be treated with dignity, respect and compassion, and trans people continue to enjoy protection from harassment and discrimination under the law. We are working with the EHRC on their code of practice, which they will set out in due course following consultation.
Frank Manali.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. My right honourable friend will know of the growing concerns around social media algorithms increasingly promoting misogynistic and harmful content to children, particularly using the hook of dangerous online influencers. Can my right honourable friend advise what steps she is taking, working with Cabinet colleagues, to protect young people from such destructive influences?
I know my honourable friend raises a concern shared by many across this House and the crucial importance of rooting out misogyny, whether it's online or offline. I'm working with colleagues across government to tackle these dangerous attitudes. We are looking, for example, through the Department for Education at bringing forward updated RSHE guidance to make sure we can use that to prevent and tackle misogyny. But alongside that, I know that my colleague, the Science and Technology Secretary, is determined to go further and faster to make sure that children are protected online.
Shadow Minister Kemi Badenoch.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'm a great believer that Britain is one of the greatest meritocracies in the world, where certainly, at least in our party, you can rise to the very top, irrespective of your race, your religion or your gender. The government's consultation on reforming equality law is a litany of activist demands and bureaucratic burdens with no proof that any of these measures will reduce inequality. So why is the government so determined to divide people into boxes on the basis of race instead of promoting equality of opportunity for all?
Mr Speaker, this Labour government is determined to break the link between background and success. So where you are from does not determine what you are able to go on and achieve, and that everyone has the chance to get as far as their hard work and their talent will take them. We do believe it is important that we tackle some of the unacceptable gaps that we see around access to employment and pay for people from minority ethnic communities and also disabled people too. And that's why we are consulting on this, working with business, and we want to get this right.
Mr Speaker, the Tories shamefully left the gender pay gap persistently high. Does the Secretary of State agree that Labour's childcare expansion, free breakfast clubs and new nurseries will drive up women's incomes and work choices because they are disproportionately more affected by caring responsibilities?
Mr Speaker, I agree with my honourable friend. This Labour government is determined to make sure that all women have choices where it comes to balancing work and family life. And that's why, Mr Speaker, we are expanding access to childcare through new free breakfast clubs, new primary-based nurseries, and I'm delighted that in my honourable friend's constituency, his constituents will benefit from one of those new free breakfast clubs.
Perpetrators hanging around school, malicious contact with customers and rat poison being sent to my constituents' homes are all frightening experiences faced by victims of domestic abuse. But police responses are inconsistent even when perpetrators are on bail. What is the Minister doing to work with other departments to ensure everyone in the system, from call handlers to CPS workers, have training on the forms of non-violent abuse to make sure that children and women are protected?
I'm grateful to the Honourable Lady who raises some incredibly important points and shines a light on the experiences of victims in her constituency. This government is determined to halve violence against women and girls. That's why, as my honourable friend the Minister set out earlier, we're taking a range of actions right across government. We, of course, are always happy to consider further areas where action is needed so that all women and girls are able to live free from abuse and intimidation within our society.
Dr. Becky Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This week we celebrate the International Day of Midwives. Midwives are an essential part of ending inequity in maternal health, delivering life-saving community-based care. Will the Minister please commit to working with the Minister for Health to ensure that our 10-year health strategy and NHS workforce plan puts in adequate resources into overstretched maternity units in many often deprived parts of our country?
Yes, I'm happy to give my honourable friend that commitment. I know how seriously the Health Secretary takes this issue because he knows, as I do, that too many women have been failed by poor maternal care, enduring traumatic experiences, and all women deserve safe, compassionate care in those very difficult, often quite difficult times that they can experience. That's why we are committed to training thousands more midwives, and through our NHS 10-year plan, we will ensure that there is equitable access right across the country for all women as they experience pregnancy and childbirth.
We now come to Prime Minister's questions. Matt Bishop.
Question number 1, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Rising tensions between India and Pakistan will be of serious concern for many across Britain. We are engaging urgently with both countries, as well as other international partners, encouraging dialogue, de-escalation and the protection of civilians. Mr. Speaker, Britain will fall silent tomorrow to mark the anniversary of VE Day. It is a day to remember our greatest generation, whose courage and selflessness won a victory over tyranny and evil. Past and present, the service of our armed forces defends our freedom, protects the values that we stand for, and makes this country so proud. Mr. Speaker, the landmark deal we've secured with India is a huge win for working people in this country. After years of negotiation, this government has delivered in months, slashing tariffs, boosting wages, unleashing opportunities for UK businesses. It's the biggest trade deal the UK has delivered since we left the EU. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In 2018, my constituent Richard Wellington was diagnosed with a glioblastoma and given just 12 months to live. Against the odds, he's still with us today. He knows his time is limited, however, and is determined to leave a legacy by improving brain cancer treatment for others. His courage is inspiring and shows extraordinary resilience. But, Mr. Speaker, patients with brain tumours fell through the cracks in our healthcare system under the Conservatives, and this must end. Will the Prime Minister set out how Labour will speed up cancer diagnosis and improve treatment times for brain tumour patients such as Richard as we go further with our plan for change?
Mr. Speaker, can I send my best wishes, and I'm sure of the House, to Richard and to every family living with cancer for their courage and fortitude. Can I also pay tribute to the my honourable friend from Mitcham and Morden, for her work to raise awareness of the devastating impact of brain cancer. I'm really proud that our plan for change has already delivered faster diagnosis for more than 80,000 cancer patients. We're rolling out Cancer 360, Mr. Speaker. That's groundbreaking new technology that will slash treatment delays across the NHS, investing in more scanners, surgical hubs and radiotherapy machines. It's important work that is only happening because of our decision to make a record investment in the NHS, opposed by every other party.
Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Badenoch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I echo the Prime Minister's comments? It was an honour to meet veterans at the VE Day parade on Monday and to commemorate the sacrifice of that generation. I look forward to marking VE Day at Westminster Abbey tomorrow. Does the Prime Minister now admit that he was wrong to remove the winter fuel payment from millions of pensioners?
Minister. Mr. Speaker, the number one job of this government was to put our finances back in order after the last government lost control. That is, and to deal with the 22 billion black hole that they left. Because of our action, we've stabilised the economy, we've invested record amounts in the NHS, with a payment out for the 3 million lowest paid, and of course we're committed to the triple lock, which improved pensions by £470 last year. And Mr. Speaker, because of the work that we've done, we're a country that countries like India want to do deals with because of the messages and the work that we've done.
Mr. Speaker, the only black hole is the one the Prime Minister is digging. This issue affects some of the poorest and most vulnerable pensioners. His mayor in Doncaster says it's wrong. His First Minister in Wales says it's wrong. Even his own MPs are saying it's wrong. He's refused to listen to me on this. Will he at least listen to his own party and change course?
Mr. Speaker, let's spell this out. All the parties opposite would take this country back to where it was a few years ago. Broken public finances, interest rates through the roof, NHS waiting lists at all-time high. Because no other party in this House is prepared to say how they would put the finances straight. No other party is saying how they would invest in our NHS and public services. No other party is focused on the long-term prosperity of Britain. No one on this side, Mr. Speaker, is denying how big the challenges that we face, but no one on that side of the House is even prepared to take those challenges on.
Mr. Speaker, we wouldn't balance it on the backs of pensioners. Pensioners are poorer and colder because of his decisions. All the while, energy has got more expensive for everyone. Why has the Prime Minister broken his promise to cut energy bills by £300?
Mr. Speaker, the way to bring energy bills down for good is to deliver cheap, clean, homegrown energy. And in the meantime, we've extended the Warm Homes discount to 6 million households, 1 in 5 families. That's £150 off the bills next winter. But what won't bring energy bills down is the Leader of the Opposition's policy, leaving us hooked on fossil fuels at the mercy of dictators like Putin. I'll tell you what else won't bring bills down. It's them blocking every infrastructure that's needed in their own backyards. They balance the books, they crash the economy on the backs of millions of working people in this country. That's why they delivered the verdict they did at the last general election.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister talks about clean energy. We have the second highest amount of renewables on the grid in Europe, and yet we still have the highest energy bills. This is not about clean energy. The Prime Minister has broken another promise. He won't admit it, but isn't the truth that he can't cut energy bills because of his net zero policy?
Energy bills on fossil fuel have fluctuated massively in the last 3 years because we're exposed to the international market. The only way to get bills down is to go to renewable energy. It's something she used to believe in, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I've got the Shadow Chancellor here, his previous words. Net zero, the shift must happen now as a matter of urgency. His words, it's no longer an environmental issue. Energy independence should be reviewed as part of our national security. He must have our lines, I think, Mr. Speaker. But what about the Leader of the Opposition herself? This is what she said. We believe that green trade and investment will be the future-proofing force that will help us create better tomorrow. And then she went on to say this, Mr. Speaker. It's long-term investment in nuclear and renewables that will reduce our dependencies on fossil fuels and keep down consumer costs. Now, she's got a reputation, apparently, for straight talking. She was right then, wasn't she?
Mr. Speaker, this approach to net zero is irrational. It's doomed to fail. Those aren't my words, they're Tony Blair's. He wants to throw words back, he should speak to him. But the truth is, the Prime Minister is on another planet. His net zero plans mean ever more expensive energy. Across the country, jobs are disappearing. Last week, a ceramics factory in Stoke closed because of energy costs. This morning, 250 more job losses have been announced in the North Sea. And yet, the amount of gas the UK is importing is doubling. So why is he shutting down the North Sea rather than getting our oil and gas out of the ground and making energy cheaper?
Mr. Speaker, as I've said many times, oil and gas will be part of the mix for many decades to come. But net zero, Mr. Speaker, is an opportunity to be seized. We've had over £43 billion invested since July of last year in clean energy. That's good for the economy, good for business, good for jobs, apprentices and growth. Mr. Speaker, the global race is on for the jobs of the future, and I believe Britain can win that race. The Leader of the Opposition, I don't think, is yet a climate denier, but she's a climate defeatist. She doesn't believe in Britain's ability to win the race for our economy, businesses and jobs. And they've never backed Britain. There's nothing patriotic about that.
Kemi Badenoch, defeat the climate.
Mr. Speaker, he's got no answer, but he couldn't even bring himself to say something. He couldn't even bring himself to say something to the 250 people who found out that they lost their job this morning. The fact is, pensioners are poorer and people are being laid off. From winter fuel to net zero, his energy policy is a disaster and everyone knows it. We know it, the public know it, the unions know it, his MPs know it, even Tony Blair knows it. His only answer is to go further and faster in the wrong direction. Why should we all suffer because he won't admit he has got this wrong?
Mr. Speaker, of course nobody wants to see job losses, but she should address her comments to the tens of thousands of men and women in this country working on renewables for the future of our country and tell them that she doesn't want that. That is anti-growth, anti-jobs and anti-working people. But every week, Mr. Speaker, she comes along to talk the country down, to cart from the sideline. She can't even bring herself to celebrate the deal we've done with India. They took 8 years fiddling around and got absolutely nothing. We've delivered the best deal since we left the EU, the most ambitious deal for India, which has been measured in billions of pounds into our economy and thousands of jobs in the country. She should be welcoming that.
Western.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. UK automotive faces major challenges, and Trump's tariffs are the latest crisis to hit the industry. Investment and jobs are now on the line, from Mini to McLaren, Aston Martin, Jaguar Land Rover, and many others. Will the Prime Minister continue to make their case in his talks with the US regime and remain a champion for this vital sector, unlike the Honourable Member for Clacton, who believes that Jaguar deserves to go bust?
Mr. Speaker, he makes a very good point. We are backing British car companies like JLR, and our India trade deal will see tariffs slashed for car sales, and that is good for British jobs. And the criticism on the double taxation is incoherent nonsense. It's a benefit to working people. It's in the agreements that we've already got with 50 other countries. And if the member for Clacton or the Leader of the Opposition is seriously suggesting that they're going to tear up agreements with 50 other countries, create a massive hole in our economy, they should get up and they should say so.
Leader of the Liberal Democrats, Ed Davey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As we celebrate 80 years since Britain led our allies to victory over fascism, can I, on behalf of the Liberal Democrats, pay tribute to all those who struggled and sacrificed so much for our freedoms today? And can I associate myself with the Prime Minister's remarks about the conflict in Kashmir, and with him urge restraint and de-escalation on both sides? Mr. Speaker, among the messages voters sent ministers last week, one stood out: bring back the winter fuel payment for millions of struggling pensioners. So people will be disappointed the Prime Minister failed to do that today. Mr. Speaker, he says he wants to go further and faster to clean up the mess left by the Conservatives. But on social care, so crucial for our NHS, he's going slower and slower. Not only will the Casey Commission take 3 years, we learnt on Friday the government plans to take an extra 7 years to implement it, not till 2036. So will the Prime Minister rip up that timetable, make sure he doesn't repeat the mess made by the Conservatives, and get on with fixing social care this year?
Mr. Speaker, as he knows, we're taking this in 2 stages. We are already taking measures to increase the support for social care, quite right too, and doing the long work to reform and make sure we put a system in place. But can I just say to him once again, he comes here every week saying we should spend more money, and he comes here at the same time saying he doesn't want to pay for any of the measures to raise that money. That is nonsense.
Sir Ed Davey.
Mr. Speaker, I'm disappointed with that answer, and I will keep coming back to hold the Prime Minister to account. Mr. Speaker, people also want a government that will stand up for our country against Donald Trump. Mr. Speaker, first he came for our steelworkers and our car makers with his outrageous tariffs. Now Donald Trump is coming for our world-leading British film industry. So will the Prime Minister work with our allies in Europe and in the Commonwealth and make clear to President Trump that if he picks a fight with James Bond, Bridget Jones and Paddington Bear, he will lose?
Mr. Speaker, he really should listen to the sectors that he thinks he's championing. They do not want us to abandon the work we're doing to try and get an agreement with America. They want that agreement to reduce tariffs. That's the sensible, pragmatic way to protect our national interest. It is not sensible or pragmatic to choose between the US and the EU, to abandon the work we're doing on trade with the US and leave the tariffs exactly where they are. That's the most damaging thing that could possibly be done.
Jack Abbott.
For the House, it's my register of interest. Mr. Speaker, for young people in Ipswich, there is no shortage of ambition, just a need for greater opportunities. And that's why last autumn I was proud to sign an agreement with Sizewell guaranteeing 500 jobs for people in my town, alongside additional investment for Suffolk New College's courses on welding, engineering and fabrication, so kids in my town can access the well-paid, secure skills jobs on offer. So therefore, can I urge the Prime Minister to support a final investment decision for Sizewell, not just for our country's energy security, but also for the once-in-a-generation opportunities for young people in Ipswich and Suffolk?
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's good to see a local Labour MP fighting for jobs in his constituency and achieving excellent results. Mr. Speaker, we will make our final investment decision at the spending review, something the party opposite failed to deliver in 14 years. We're unashamedly pro-nuclear, pro-growth and pro-jobs. That's why we're making it easier to build small modular reactors and scrapping absurd rules that left vital projects tangled up in needless paperwork. We're doing the work that they failed to do in 14 years.
Stephen Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Prior to the election, the Prime Minister promised that energy bills would come down. They continue to rise. He promised that he would save the refinery at Grangemouth. It's shut. And of course, he promised that he would unleash a generation of secure energy jobs in my city of Aberdeen. Well, today, Harbour Energy, the largest independent player in the North Sea, have announced that they are about to shed their workforce by 25%. That's 250 jobs in my constituency gone in the blink of his eye. And do you know who they blame, Mr. Speaker? They blame the policies of the Labour Party. So can I ask the Prime Minister, in fact, can I invite the Prime Minister to come to Aberdeen and explain to my constituents why he is willing to move heaven and earth to save jobs in Scunthorpe while destroying jobs in Scotland?
Mr. Speaker, nobody wants to see job losses, but I'd remind the right honourable member that before we came into office 10 months ago, the SNP government in Holyrood, alongside the Conservative government, did absolutely nothing for projects like Granmouth. Absolutely nothing. In Grangemouth, we have committed £200 million to secure the future for the site, delivered a £100 million deal. We're helping with the training guarantees that are needed. But just like his First Minister, the Honourable he'll raise anything to distract from their disastrous record. Almost 1 in 6 Scots stuck on an NHS waiting list, standards and violence in Scottish schools, over £1 billion cut from local government. We gave them the biggest settlement since devolution. They've been in power for nearly 2 decades. They've got absolutely nowhere to hide their appalling record.
You should struggle.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can I thank the Prime Minister for recently visiting the now royal port of Barrow in my constituency to lay the keel for the new Dreadnought-class submarines recently. He will have seen how proud we are to build our nuclear deterrent, which keeps us safe. As we move forward with our plans for change, does the Prime Minister agree with me that Barrow and Furness can provide a blueprint for the whole country with defence investment, creating jobs, growth and prosperity in communities right across the UK?
She's absolutely right, Mr Speaker. Royal Barrow is a model for how defence can be a catalyst for the skilled, well-paid jobs right across the United Kingdom. And I was proud and humbled to thank the crew of the Vanguard submarine returning home after months away, including 4 of those on board who are returning to their newborn children. That's the change that will come from spending 2.5% of GDP on defence for the first time since the last Labour government. Extra investment in Barrow has been made possible by my honourable friend and this government because the party opposite made promises, but as usual, they never ever set the money aside.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Ahead of the 80th anniversary of VE Day, may I thank the Prime Minister for his government's recognition of the highly dangerous and clandestine work of the 1,746 pilots and navigators who form the RAF's photographic reconnaissance squadrons and the 635 Buckinghamshire-based photographic interpreters, often forgotten, by marking their service with a national memorial near the Churchill War Rooms. They had a near-death rate of 50% and only 2.5 months life expectancy. But they still captured 26 million images of enemy operations, providing daily up-to-date intelligence via the interpreter's analysis to the strategists in the Cabinet War Rooms for all our armed forces. I'd ask the Prime Minister to join me when this national memorial is unveiled to pay our respects to the likes of the late Captain Wilfred Bruce Tilley, DFC, of Axbridge in my constituency, and the other amazing young men whose work was so critical to the safety of millions of people in this country and elsewhere.
Well, can I thank her for raising this really important issue? And I'm sure members across the House would support a memorial to the service and sacrifice of those veterans. The bravery and service of individuals like Captain Tilley and others in the photographic reconnaissance units and photographic interpreters saved the lives of many servicemen and servicewomen, and of course civilians, at the cost, as she rightly points out, of many casualties, in fact, of those units. So as we mark the 80th anniversary of VE Day, we will remember them who helped secure our greatest victory.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, the London Borough of Hackney spends £54 million a year and rising on temporary accommodation. Not only is this costing the taxpayer dear, but it's wrenching families apart, communities rent asunder, schools are closing, and families are living in hostels in overcrowded rooms or far-flung out of London. I welcome our pledge to build 1.5 million new homes. Will the Prime Minister reassure my constituents that social housing is a priority for him?
Well, she's absolutely right. Families are desperate for security of their own home, and we're delivering the biggest boost to affordable and social housing in a generation, backed by an additional £2 billion of investment. And that and our reforms will supply our ambitions to build 88,000 new homes across London, including in her constituency. Mr Speaker, at the same time, we're tackling the root causes of homelessness and, of course, scrapping Section 21 evictions.
Savage.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Under the Conservatives, inequality has surged, with now over 14 million people, including 2,000 children in the South Cotswolds, now living in poverty, while the richest 1% see their incomes soar. Of the developed countries, we are now the 9th most unequal. Will the Prime Minister listen to the Liberal Democrats, the public and many of his own Labour backbenchers and commit to reversing changes such as PIP, the winter fuel allowance and two-child benefit cap, and introduce clear poverty reduction targets to ensure that any economic growth benefits those who need it most?
Well, she's right to raise the appalling record of the last government, which saw 900,000 more children in poverty. Mr Speaker, we're already delivering 750 free breakfast clubs, boosting the minimum wage for over 3 million. That's the lowest paid workers in our country. And the Child Poverty Task Force is looking at every lever that can be pulled. I'm very proud of the last Labour government's record on tackling poverty, and will continue to do that in this government.
Lady Stewart.
Mr Speaker, last month's data showed the NHS lists in Wales fell by 3 months in a row. In England, the waiting lists have fallen by 6 months in a row. In Scotland, after nearly 20 years in charge, the SNP government have left our NHS on its knees. Instead, remarkable acts of charity from rock legend Rod Stewart are helping people to get the care they need. Will the Prime Minister agree with me that Scotland needs a new direction so that my constituents in Ayr, Carrick and Cumnock don't rely on charity for their health care?
Well, I thank her for raising this issue. The contrast, as she points out, is stark. In England and Wales, waiting lists are falling, with over 3 million extra appointments already delivered. In Scotland, the SNP they've just introduced, Mr Speaker, their 5th NHS recovery plan in just 4 years. They've had the biggest budget settlement since devolution. Nearly 2 decades in power, they've still no idea how to fix the NHS, and they've run out of excuses.
Sean Burry.
Mr Speaker, VE Day marked the end of horror in Europe, and afterwards our post-war expansion of welfare benefits was something truly principled from Labour. So, given the real fear felt by disabled people in Brighton Pavilion and across the nation, will the Prime Minister agree that now is the time to be principled again and restore their support, not make his MPs vote to restrict it?
Well, I thank her for raising the record of the post-war Labour government, a great reforming government. Mr Speaker, the principles remain the same, which is those that need support and protection should have that support and protection. Those that can be supported and helped into work should be helped and supported into work, something that isn't happening under the system as it is, and those who can work should work.
Colin Days.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Crewe in my constituency has a proud rail heritage, with Crewe Station boasting unrivalled 360-degree connectivity to all 4 corners of our country. So when the Conservative government took the decision to cancel the second leg of HS2, this was a great betrayal of my constituents, taking a sledgehammer to our town's prospects for regeneration and prosperity. So will the Prime Minister look kindly upon proposals to extend high-speed rail north of Birmingham, utilising Crewe's unique strategic value to the rail network and bringing opportunity and prosperity to the north of England?
Well, Mr Speaker, he's right to highlight the importance of stronger and more reliable rail connections, improving journeys and driving economic growth. The party opposite utterly failed to grip delivery on HS2. Costs went through the roof, timelines were shredded, false promises and a total failure. Mr Speaker, we're reviewing the position that we inherited, and we're committed to improving rail connectivity across the north, and we've already announced £415 million extra for the key Trans-Pennine route upgrade, which will slash journey times, deliver growth and more reliable modern services for passengers.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. This week, the Israeli government approved a plan to officially conquer Gaza. And just yesterday, Minister Smotrich vowed that Gaza will be entirely destroyed and that the Palestinians will have to leave in great numbers to third countries. This comes at the end of the extermination of over 50,000 Palestinian men, women and children, and something at the same time simultaneous expansion of illegal settlements in the West Bank, something I witnessed with my own eyes last week. So will now the Prime Minister finally acknowledge that ethnic cleansing is underway and to end all UK military cooperation with Israel, especially the illegal provision of F-35 fighter jet parts, or will he risk make Britain complicit in war crimes and be the Prime Minister to see Britain answer at The Hague for its role in this atrocity?
Well, Mr Speaker, most of what he says is simply not right. But can I address, I do want to address the position in Gaza and the West Bank, because it is increasingly intolerable. And I am deeply concerned, particularly with the lack of aid that is getting in and the impact it's having on tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of individuals. That concern is something I recently reaffirmed to the Prime Minister of the Palestinian Authority, where I asserted again that a two-state solution is the only viable approach for peace. And our focus is on delivering peace for Palestinians and Israelis, returning to the ceasefire, getting the hostages out and humanitarian aid in that is desperately needed in greater number and more quickly.
Maureen Barr.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. As a result of a relationship breakdown, my constituent Martin and his 3 children ended up homeless. They have gone from living in a hotel to temporary accommodation. Martin feels abandoned because Glasgow City Council haven't been in contact for months. Months of uncertainty has disrupted all their lives, but Martin is especially worried about the impact on his children's education. Like any father, he wants stability for his family, but the lack of social housing means they are stuck in complete limbo. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that every child, no matter where they live, deserves a safe home and access to a good education, and that in every part of the UK we need to build more social housing to end homelessness?
Yeah. Well, Mr Speaker, I'm deeply sorry to hear about Martin's case and absolutely agree with her comments about every family deserving a safe and a secure home. And in England, that's why we're investing an additional £2 billion to help deliver the biggest increase in social and affordable house building in a generation. But in Scotland, it is frankly disgraceful that over 10,000 children have no fixed home to call their own after nearly 20 years of an SNP government. Mr Speaker, that's the highest level ever and shows why Scotland desperately needs a new direction.
That because...
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Thank you, Mr Speaker. Last week, I was talking to Jason, a pub landlord, and he told me he's heard a rumour about the Prime Minister. Oh. Not that one, not that one. He's heard that there is a reason why the Prime Minister hates Britain's pubs. Landlords like Jason are being battered by Labour's jobs tax and the slashing of small business rates relief, meaning that as many as half of Britain's pubs could be closed by 2030. Why does he hate Britain's pubs? And if he doesn't, why is he taxing them into extinction?
Mr Speaker, nobody likes pubs better than me, and we support them. But, Mr Speaker, it's the same old nonsense. They say they don't want the national insurance rise, but they don't have the courage to say they'd reverse it, because they know if they said that, they wouldn't be able to say where the money's coming from. That's how we got into the problem in the first place.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Few things are more harrowing than a parent's desperate and repeated attempts to access the mental health support their child needs. Organisations like Smile, a counselling service supporting young people in the Bathgate and Linlithgow constituency, are stepping into the breach whilst young people languish on waiting lists without the help they need. Over the last decade, Smile has been a lifeline for thousands. Will the Prime Minister join me in wishing Declan and the team at Smile a very happy 10th birthday and thank them for their invaluable work in supporting our young people and families?
Well, Mr Speaker, can I join her and commend all the staff at Smile for their vital work. Far too many young people are left without the support that they need. And that's why we're recruiting an additional 8,500 mental health workers, providing access to specialist mental health professionals in every school, and funding talking therapies across the country to bring down waiting times and get people the care that they need.
Alfred Blandry.
With the so-called EU-UK Reset Summit less than 2 weeks away, will the Prime Minister reassure the House that he will not hand over any British sovereign powers, particularly hard-won controls over our UK fishing waters, in backroom deals with Brussels?
Mr Speaker, as she knows, we committed to resetting the relationship with the EU. We think there's a better deal that can be had. I'm not going to provide a running commentary. What I can say is this. We will act only, as we always do, in the national interest. We've secured a very good deal with India. We're talking to the US, and we're going for a reset with the EU to boost our economy.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. As you know, I'm alarmed by news that the Press Association, which assiduously covers our exchanges here, may cut back its dawn-to-dusk coverage through redundancies. Now, Hansard faithfully records our words, but it's reporters in the press gallery which bear witness to the human drama here. And no amount of AI will replace the human eyes in the press gallery. Will the Prime Minister join me and my honourable friend from Rochdale in calling on the newspapers and media outlets which fund the Press Association to hold the front page and reconsider these rash moves?
Well, Mr. Speaker, he raised a really important point. We enjoy free press and independent journalism in this country. Across the world, journalists risk their lives and lose their lives doing what they do best, independently pursuing the truth. And I've been on many occasions to award ceremonies, usually on a yearly basis, where the names of those journalists that have either lost their lives or their freedom is read out. And it's always a humbling reminder of the really important work that they do.
Final question, Mike Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, as you know, Parliament has banned charging of electric vehicles in its underground car park because of safety concerns. And yet, local authorities around the country often feel powerless to stop the construction of battery energy storage systems near people's homes, near our rivers and canals, despite 3 fires already this year. Will the Prime Minister look again at his planning and infrastructure bill to make it easier, rather than harder, for local communities to have a meaningful say?
Mr. Speaker, I'm really proud that on our planning and infrastructure we're taking the action that hasn't been taken for years to drive our economy. And I'll remind him it was the thing that was signalled by the OBR as the single biggest driver of growth over the coming years.
That completes Prime Minister's questions. Let the front bench change over. Right, we now come to the urgent question. Stuart Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To ask the Minister if he will make a statement on the potential implications for the UK film industry of the United States' proposed 100% tariff on foreign-produced films.
Minister Black.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the House will be aware, President Trump announced on Sunday that he had authorised the Commerce Department to initiate tariffs on all movies produced in foreign lands. He has made other comments since. This is a very fluid situation, and we will continue to take a calm and steady approach. I spent most of Monday talking to UK and US filmmakers and the General Secretary of Bectu, amongst others, and I can tell the House that we are already in active discussions with the top of the US administration on this subject. We are working hard to establish what might be proposed, if anything, and to make sure our world-beating creative industries are protected. We're absolutely committed to ensuring the film industry can continue to thrive and create good jobs right across the UK. UK film and high-end television generated production spend of £5.6 billion in 2024, and we want to work with our domestic industry and international partners to continue to build on that success. We are absolutely clear that the deep ties between the US and UK film industries provide mutual benefits to both countries. Productions are, by their very nature, international partnerships, which are often developed and created across different countries and locations. Indeed, US movies are often multinational precisely because US movies earn far more overseas than they do domestically in the United States of America. The UK and the US both benefit when the likes of Star Wars and Mission Impossible are filmed in the UK, just as we both benefit from the close working relationship between our producers, talent and crew. Our countries have a long history of working together to drive the growth and creative success of our film and television sectors. From Cary Grant to Hugh Grant and Alfred Hitchcock to Christopher Nolan, British talent has often been at the forefront of the US sector, and I'm absolutely sure this will continue in the years ahead. I was once told by a film producer, never judge a film by the first 10 minutes. I think we can say the same of this.
Secretary of State Stuart Tandra.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his answer. And as he rightly says, we learned over the weekend that the President's administration intends to impose this 100% tariff on all films produced outside the US. It is understood that he's directed US government to begin implementing this policy immediately. Now, I welcome the fact the Minister absolutely recognised the film industry in this country is a jewel in our crown and world-leading creative industries, and I would also point out that, of course, the sector alone is worth 1.96 billion here and supports 195,000 jobs up and down the country. And of course, it shows off our great British culture and values and the talent that we have, and also some of the most amazing settings for so many films of different genres. And I'm glad that they are working to ensure that all is done to give confidence to our directors, actors, screenwriters, producers, that they are thinking about them, because for both independent filmmakers and major given they're still recovering after the COVID pandemic. But I have to say, it is disappointing that the government failed to start the negotiations with President Trump's team for 5 months after the election and fired Britain's top trade negotiator. And it is difficult not to wonder if a different approach could have led to a different outcome. Nonetheless, the priority is to protect our film industry. So what assessment has he made of the potential impact on the UK film sector? What immediate steps is the government taking to engage with the US and ensure that that investment in UK facilities is highlighted comes from many US businesses who would be affected? And what contingency plans has he prepared in the event that no exemptions can be secured? And finally, what assessment have they made on the potential drastic cut in the BBC studio's profits, which sales into the US market could have on the licence fee?
Well, first of all, can I, on a cooperative note, say that one of the reasons that we have a very strong film and high-end television sector in the UK is because of the joint policy that has been adopted across several years by both Conservative and Labour administrations, which is to make sure that we have very competitive tax credits, and I pay tribute to the work that was done by the previous government and that we were able to enhance when we brought in the 2 new tax credits in the budget just before Christmas. Yes, we're not in favour of bringing in tariffs. In fact, I think I'm right in saying that in 1947 the Labour government did bring in tariffs on US films. Because we thought that there were too many US films being shown in British cinemas. It didn't go very well as a strategy because the Americans simply banned export of US films, and we ended up watching Ben-Hur repeatedly in every cinema, and a film called Hell's a Poppin', which I don't think anybody has since watched ever since. However, the successful bit of what we did in 1947 and 1948 was that we invested in the British film production system. And that led to films like Hamlet and Kind Hearts and Coronets. So I think that that's the pattern that we still want to adopt. But let me be absolutely clear. We believe that there are mutual benefits to both of us if we continue on the path that we have selected. I'm not sure precisely what is intended. I don't know what a tariff on a service would look like. I don't know whether it's intended that that will be on movie theatres. The danger for that is already in the US they have 2 major problems with the US film industry. One of them is distribution costs, and that could deal if they went down that route, it could lead to heavy problems for them. And the other problem is the very high costs of making movies in the United States of America. But as I say, most films these days are an international collaboration of some kind, and we want to maintain that. Even Paddington, I'm looking at the honourable gentleman from Cheltenham over there, only because I suspect he's about to mention it, and he's just given me a Paddington stare. Even Paddington, of course, has not just, which was a British production, but it was made by Studio Canal, which of course is part of Canal Plus, and it had Spanish actors as well as British actors. I mean, this is just a fact of modern films. They are multinational, and that is one of their strengths. Incidentally, I don't think Paddington ever went to Peru. I don't think they filmed any of it in Peru. And I'm told by my Peruvian friends that there aren't any bears in Peru.
Dave Baghilia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I welcome the Minister's measured and thoughtful response to this latest announcement by President Trump and his full-throated support for the British film industry. He'll be aware that in my constituency in Hackney, Hackney South and Shoreditch and across Hackney, we're very much a venue for filming, both for film and television. In his discussions with the United States, will he make sure that he's also championing, as I think he just briefly referred to, high-end television that is produced and often filmed and made in Hackney, and also a plea for all of those creative industries in my constituency that feed into the film industry? Can he ensure that there's good communication from the government about these negotiations, because this is creating a great deal of uncertainty?
Minister.
I'm very grateful to my honourable friend, and I know Hackney very well, as she knows I used to be a councillor in Hackney, and it's not just London, it's the whole of the United Kingdom, which is a phenomenal place to make a movie, because we have some of the best scenery, some of the best buildings. It's not just Bath that gets used endlessly for lots of films, but when I was there a couple of weeks ago, I think people were listing a long list of films, but she's also right that what is the difference between making Bridgerton or making a movie? Some of these things, the pattern is very similar. International collaboration is important because it delivers international audiences, and we want to maintain that.
Max Wilkinson, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. British film really is the marmalade sandwich in the lunchbox of our creative industries. It gave us Bond, Paddington, Harry Potter and Monty Python. Now, Donald Trump clearly thinks he's a godlike figure, but on the Lib Dem benches, we're very clear he's not the Messiah, he's a very naughty boy. If he had his way, we'd be watching Harry Potter and The Prisoner of Alcatraz, or perhaps The Executive Order of the Phoenix. So, can the Minister confirm that all options will be on the table to protect our film industry, including working with allies like Canada and Australia, who have shown strength in recent weeks by voting anti-Trump? Will he commit to immediately meeting with film industry leaders in the UK to coordinate a response in this area? And will the government back our world-leading creatives by doing the right thing on AI and copyright?
Well, I could have predicted half the question because I knew Paddington would get in there. But on the serious point, first of all, I am meeting with the industry tomorrow afternoon, and I look forward to understanding from them what precise concerns they may have, as well as the obvious concerns that all of us share. I want to just slightly caution against this word, which has been used, I think, 3 times now, that President Trump announced something. A clear policy has not been announced. And I think we need to be just careful about that, because it's difficult to see, as I said earlier, how you would impose a tariff on a service or on films in this way. I want to be just careful and precise about the way we move forward on this. I've been asked, what are we doing? We've already had people in Washington, D.C. Talking with people in the Trump administration at the highest level, and we will progress that. Of course, we want to do everything we possibly can to preserve the strength of the industry.
Joe Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of my little sisters works in the UK film and TV industry, and I'd like to say I'm immensely proud of her. Can I just urge the Minister to, as part of the soon-to-be-published Creative Industries Sector Plan, to look at how we bolster homemade film and TV, particularly in Northumberland, where we've got some of the most wonderful landscapes. Obviously, we sadly lost Sycamore Gap a couple of years ago. I know that provides a memorable backdrop. But we have Hadrian's Wall, we have a fantastic workforce, and too often I see young people in the North East have to leave the North East to get those creative opportunities elsewhere in the UK.
It's an extremely well-made point, and I would add to it something that I said when I appeared before the Select Committee, from whom we might hear in a moment or two, I guess, which is that I'm very keen on having a mixed economy in the British film industry. Sometimes we will be making films for other markets. Sometimes we'll be making films which are predominantly British stories, telling about the way we are in this country, selling them obviously around the world, but where the IP remains with British production companies. And it's that mix that I think that we need to achieve. I should say also, Mr. Speaker, just in response to the Honourable gentleman, he talked about our relationship with the US. Actually, the Secretary of State last week was in India, and she wants to make sure that we have a much stronger relationship with India as well, one of the fastest growing economies in the world. We think we can do a great deal more in that film production space as well.
Chair of the Select Committee, Dame Caroline.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. There's no doubt that this speculation is going to cause huge worry to those working in British film production. But as he says, it also highlights once again the importance of bolstering British screen sector. And we did recommend steps to deliver this in a very recent Select Committee report. Yet within days of publishing that report, his department had already asked for an extension with which to respond. And then this weekend, we heard rumours that the whole department is up for the chop under his government. And I'm not sure whether that's before or after he's sacrificed our creative industries on the altar of AI. So what I want to know from the Minister is, he's a brilliant communicator, and I know deep in his heart he cares passionately about this, but when is he going to show some grip and actually show some action on behalf of our world-leading creative industries, and in particular our screen sector?
Well, I hope she would accept that there are areas where I have taken very deliberate action on the back of recommendations from her Select Committee, not least in relation to a levy on gig and arena tickets to fund support for small music venues. But I take her point. I wasn't aware that we'd asked for an extension. We will get on with providing a response to her as fast as possible. It was an excellent report. I've read it. There are lots of good things in there that I do want to take forward. We probably won't be able to do everything in it. But look, I think one of the things that is really important that we focus on is skills in the UK screen industry. This has been raised repeatedly with me. I want every kid in the country to have a chance to work in the creative industries, and including in film and high-end television. Many of them wouldn't even think that that was a possibility for them. So we need to transform that whole pathway into those skills in the industry, and I know that's one of the things that our Select Committee has raised.
Peter Swallow.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Whether it's because of the fantastic state-of-the-art Shinfield Studios just up the road, or access to fantastic filming locations like Swinley Forest and the Crown Estate, or because of our incredible transport links, Bracknell Forest is increasingly becoming a go-to location for the film industry. But just as the Minister's already touched on, we do need to see more emphasis placed on homegrown skills, so young people in Bracknell can access the fantastic opportunities the film sector offers. So could he say a bit more about what this government is going to do to break down the barriers of opportunity into the film industry?
Minister.
Well, we have invested significant amounts of money already in the skills sector, and more came as a result of the budget this year. He's quite right that his patch is a go-to area for film production. But one of the reasons that US companies, and for that matter companies from many parts around the world, come to the UK to make films is because of the skills that we have in the UK. We have some of the best cinematographers, some of the best technical experts, the designers, as well as the acting talent, which means that it's possible to make a very convincing film in the UK more effectively and cheaper than in many other places. We're determined to make sure that the UK remains the best place in the world to make movies.
Daisy Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Film studios are a really important part of our economy in Hertfordshire. And they give opportunities in terms of jobs, apprenticeships and work experience to people in my constituency of St Albans. Now, as the Minister has recognised, it's not remotely clear yet how these tariffs would actually operate, and many have said that they are unworkable. But if America does go ahead and we have to take action in this country to make sure our film industry is competitive, can I urge him to please look at the business rates regime with the Treasury? Nearby to me, Sky Studios in Elstree have seen their business rates go up by over 600%. They now account for 30% of their operating costs. So can I encourage the Minister to look at that as one measure that we can tackle to make sure that we protect our creative industries and film sector here in the UK?
Minister. She makes a very good point, which has been raised with me by several others. Of course, we did make special provision in the budget, which to ensure that there's the business rates for studios are protected until 2034. I think that is a good measure. I know that some of the very large ones are finding it more difficult. I'm happy to continue looking at that. But let me just read a statistic that may be helpful. According to the Motion Picture Association of the United States of America, their report published in January this year says that in 2023, the US earned $22.6 billion in film and television exports, and its services trade surplus was $15.3 billion, or 6% of the total US trade surplus in services. I think it is mutually beneficial for the US and the UK to remain with the system that we have without tariffs.
Chris Phillips. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you'll be aware, Harlow is the birthplace of Rupert Grint, Joe Joyner, Rick Mail, and I have to mention Layla Khan because I used to teach her and she's an up-and-coming star. It's also recently doubled for Paris in an episode of The Crown. Does the Minister agree with me that Harlow, as well as the rest of the UK, has a huge amount of talent, and far from relying on US importing of films, we actually produce some fantastic films in this country, and our film industry is growing, and what can this government do to support it to continue to grow and thrive?
Minister. Well, in particular, he's quite right about Harlow, and I would argue many different parts of the UK that have never yet managed to get into films need to up their game. Local authorities can play a role, I think, in making sure that their area is considered as a potential place to make a film. Often it's about whether there's other facilities available in the local area that can contribute to that. But he makes a fair point on behalf of Harlow. I think that if there is a film, he'll be starring in it.
Oliver Dowden.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I may be able to help the Minister. Paddington Bear actually lives in Boreham Wood because Paddington Bear, the movie, was produced at Elstree Film Studios in my constituency, which sits alongside Sky at Elstree as jewels in the crown of the British industry. And it's no surprise that Donald Trump is jealous because, by many accounts, more film and television content is produced in Hertfordshire than in Hollywood. Yep. But as the Minister rightly says, this is a mutual benefit between our two nations. But there is one thing that the Minister could do right now. And for once, I will say that I agree with my honourable friend, the Honourable Lady, the Minister for, the Member of Parliament for St Albans. I'll get my facts right in a moment. And this is the key point. Business rates are proving crippling for many of our studios, including Elstree Film Studios. So I would urge the Minister to have another go at the Treasury. I remember this with the Culture Recovery Fund. They're resistant to begin with, but if you keep on going, you get some further movement. That would be a huge fillip to the industry and help it withstand whatever shocks it may face.
Minister. Very confused about who's a minister and who's not a minister these days. Look, I accept the point. It's clearly an issue. And in fact, I remember when we were in opposition, I was regularly knocking on the door of the shadow Secretary of State, trying to get him to do something to persuade the Treasury to do something about business rates at the time. Look, I'm fully on board. I understand the problem that we have, and I look forward to him assisting me in more endeavours in the future. Hugh Bonneville told me that he was slightly upset when he signed up to Paddington in Peru because he thought he was going to be filming in Peru, but he said, I got as far as Boreham Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The economy is set to benefit from £50 billion boost from the Universal Theme Park in Bedfordshire, which is going to, as all members will welcome, star Paddington Bear. Would the Minister agree that stars like Paddington Bear actually have an enormous amount of soft power? I think we've heard that today in the Chamber. So what can he do to reassure me that he is going to make sure that we protect and support the very next generation of great British storytellers?
Minister. She makes a very good point about, and we're delighted, incidentally, that the theme park is going to happen. I think that will be absolutely transformational for the British tourism industry. Apart from anything else, it'll be the largest theme park across the whole of Europe. I'm very grateful to my colleagues in the Treasury who certainly delivered when it was necessary in relation to that. I do want to emphasise how important are not just film, but high-end television, and for that matter, the very existence of the BBC and stuff that's produced by ITV and many others is as part of our soft power. Though I think Paddington probably counts as hard power.
Clive Jones.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Shinfield Studio in Wokingham Borough has brought hundreds of jobs to my constituents and many across Berkshire. It's a very important part of our local economy and a symbol of the UK's creative strength. We must not forget Berkshire is the Hollywood of Britain, and it must be protected from Donald Trump's reckless tariffs. Will the Minister condemn these harmful tariffs and work with the film industry to ensure that the UK remains the world's premier destination for film investment?
He's absolutely right. We want to maintain it as the premier destination for international investment, not just from the United States of America. I've already referred to India, but I would also argue Nigeria. I'd like to see a lot more co-production between the UK and Nigeria. It's worth bearing in mind, incidentally, that 51% of our movie exports go to the European Union. So, I mean, this is a genuinely open market, and my belief is that free trade is better than tariffs.
Andrew Peck.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Minister will know that the UK has a world-leading film and TV workforce that flies the flag for collaboration, British talent, and for economic growth around the world. But he will also know that much of our film workforce is freelance, and he will be watching this news with anxiety, particularly as many of them are still recovering from the impact of the industrial action taken in the US recently. So can I thank him for his hard work, and I'm pleased he's spoken to Philippa Childs, the head of BEC2. BEC2 are fearless champions for our industry in the UK. Can I ask him, can he join me in reassuring BEC2 members and our film workforce that we are on their side and we will help protect film talent in the UK, whatever happens?
Mr. Speaker, I'll make 2 points following on from that. First is the point about how the difficulties that there have been in the UK market in film and high-end television industry in the last couple of years, because of what happened in the United States of America, makes that point about the mutuality between the US and the UK film industry all the stronger. The truth is, I would like the US movie industry to be strong, because if it's strong, our industry will be strong as well. I think there are net benefits to both of us, and there's a win-win here. The second point is about freelance. Yes, I've often worried that so much of the creative industries rely on freelance workers. Now, in many cases, that's great. People want that kind of career, but they also need some degree of security if they're to be able to, take out a mortgage and plan their economic future. So that's one of the things that we're definitely looking at in relation to the industrial strategy, which we hope we'll be publishing soon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The film industry is enormously important to the Buckinghamshire economy, with Pinewood Studios in my honourable friend for Beaconsfield constituency, but that's supporting many of my constituents in jobs, not just at the studios themselves, but the many supply chain businesses that feed into that. And Pinewood go over and above most other businesses I know in providing opportunities to young people through their Futures Festival of really showcasing every single career that could be had in the film industry. Much of that success is actually done on American money, because with companies like Disney and Amazon using Pinewood out of choice, that is where the success comes from. So on top of what the Minister has said about working with the Trump administration to try and avoid these tariffs, can he assure us that he's also working with companies like Disney, like Amazon, to ensure that those American brands are speaking up to say why they are choosing Pinewood and other UK studios?
Minister.
Actually, I think the first text message I received very early on Monday morning was from Pinewood. Yes, I'm on that case as well. And he makes it. It's not just incidentally about Amazon and Disney. It's also about the streamers and a whole series of different other organisations who like making their product here in the United Kingdom. And of course, Pinewood is the home of Bond. I mean, that too now makes the point, because historically, I think I'm right in saying that the distribution rights for Bond were with an American company, but the production rights were with Barbara Broccoli and her relatives. But now all of that is with the US. So let me put it this way. I'm very hopeful that Bond will still always be British.
John Sleeper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm glad that the Minister mentioned the phrase win-win, because in international trade, in the film industry, in the creative industries, it has to be about win-win rather than zero-sum. And I would like to point out that when I've discussed this industry with Fabian Riggle, the founder of Secret Cinema, it's absolutely clear we have such incredible innovators in our creative industry and in the film sector specifically. And in order for them to flourish, we need to retain that sense that it's a win-win internationally and for the UK, not zero-sum.
He makes an extremely good point, Mr. Speaker. And if I might just leap off the word cinema that he used there to make the point that actually film is not just about production, it's also about finding audiences. And one of my concerns in the UK is about how do we make sure that cinemas, they would be called movie theatres in the United States of America, I guess, can flourish as well. They can be a really important part of dignity in a town, in a town. A town that's got a cinema is likely to be a place that has respect for itself, and I'd like to make sure that that continues into the future.
Be wishes.